Do you want to kill JoJo Siwa? Also, who the fuck is JoJo Siwa?
First off, everything that I've learned about JoJo Siwas has been against my better judgment and against my will.
Yeah.
She's the girl from the dance thing. She's the one who created gay pop. You didn't hear about this?
JoJo Siwa?
I don't know
who
JoJo Siwa is.
She does the dance.
She's like the female Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
she's up
okay.
there. Like
crazy.
It actually goes JoJo then Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Did she
She's
also
the queen of gay pop.
Did she also?
No, I don't know why we're commenting. She's just turned 21.
But she didn't assault minors like Michael Jackson did, or did she also rape kids?
We're starting off with the hard. Well, listen. Well, listen here. I don't think she did that.
Okay.
We're really starting with
hardballs.
It's funny because questions.
It's funny because in the bathroom he was like, "Just please make sure I don't get canceled." And we're starting off.
I asked for one request because, listen, full disclosure, Divij is a good friend.
Great friend.
We speak very candidly.
Yeah.
And we're open with each other. Listen, we're loving. We love all, but we make fun of each other. He makes fun of me. I make fun of him, and we get into it. I said maybe we don't do that here, but I think we're going to end up doing it. Anyway.
I think we're going to end up doing it.
Just know it's out of love and respect, and I'm part of that like comedic era where everything has to be funny or nothing's funny.
Yeah.
Because for example, I had a family member with cancer, so that like destroyed my life for years.
Yeah.
But when I hear cancer jokes, obviously that's going to hit me a little different than somebody who's never had to go through that situation, but I have to still laugh. Like, first off, life is way too short to take everything seriously, even the serious things. I learned that from my very Jewish mother. We joke about everything.
Yeah.
As we were making Hitler jokes before, that's probably
Hitler jokes are not.
Well, fuck that. First off, fuck that guy. We can all agree.
100%.
Fuck him. But you can make some jokes every now and again.
If you met Hitler, what would you say to him?
If I met Hitler?
Yeah. If you could have dinner with Hitler, what would you say to him?
Listen, I think I could win him over. Because listen.
You bring him to Rumble, just fucking
that's
do a
what I'm
couple
saying.
workouts.
Like, I'm a likable guy. I'm like, I feel like I could, infiltrate his mind a little bit, and maybe I could turn the tides. Maybe
you could save the world.
We could try. If we had like a Bill and Ted's time machine, I would be willing to risk it for the greater of humanity. Because,
if you were there when the Holocaust was happening, I feel like you would be throwing like Rumble boxing classes like in the gas chambers.
In Auschwitz,
just, like in the chamber. You know what I mean? Like maybe potentially.
Probably, I would probably be murdered. Because that's what happened to 6 million of us. You asshole.
Yeah.
But
sorry.
Listen, shit. How do you even respond?
I don't know.
That? I will say that I did visit some concentration camps when I was over in where was I? Prague. I was in Prague.
That's cool.
And there were a lot of people that were like taking selfies and like I swear I saw some girl do a TikTok dance. And I'm like, do you have any?
This is so fucked up. Yeah.
What happened on these grounds? Like, this is a respectful place. So, joking is one thing, but I think being disrespectful live.
There's a line. Yeah.
There's a line. But that brings me back to my point. Like, again, a cancer joke hit me differently than like Shane Gillis, who has people with Down syndrome in his family, so he makes fun of. Does
he have Down syndrome? Because
he might have some tisms.
Yeah.
Like him and Theo Vaughn and that whole crew.
Sure.
Like, I think why they can joke about it is like, I feel like all of the creatives nowadays are on the spectrum a little bit. Like, I'm certainly on the spectrum. 100%. I'm not like that is not a joke. I am somewhere there.
I agree.
Between here. Thank you for seconding that. But and also ADHD.
I see that though. For sure, you're like
I don't like how you said that.
You're like an energizer bunny.
It's like,
you're like the no, I am too. But like, but you're like an energizer bunny. But
well, I've learned to use it as a superpower.
Yeah,
because for so long when I was growing up, especially in school, they try to tether you to a desk. They medicate you. I was on like, thank you. Is this important to you? Is this important enough to silence your phone? Was that Dominique?
It was Dominique.
Is that some time for later? Is that
for later.
Pick up. No, I want to hear how you.
I just edited it. You want me to call her back?
Yeah, call Dominique back and be like, listen, this is very important. I need you to
respect my time.
No. Let the man run.
Hey, Dominique, I'm live on a podcast with Noah Neiman, founder of Rumble Boxing. He wanted me to call you back.
I thought it was disrespectful. You have to answer though, lady. My mom taught me that.
How are you?
Is this professional or is it business?
Do you like Rumble Boxing?
Professional or personal?
It's business.
It's both. You're mixing.
No, we don't call mingle
Money and blood don't mix like two dicks.
Do you like Rumble Boxing, Dominique?
That's what Biggie said.
I love it.
We gotta.
Dominique, have you ever taken a Rumble class?
On the house for Divij. Anytime you want.
Actually, yeah, Divij is the one who raves about it 24/7.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
plug. Yeah.
All right, Dom, can I call you after?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Great. Dominic's the best.
We love her.
Why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, guys, welcome to the podcast. This is actually our 100th episode.
Oh,
Can we
wow.
get a round of
Awesome.
applause?
Congrats.
Thank you, bro.
Congrats.
It's been 3 years of cranking pods, and I'm honestly very excited to have a good friend of mine as our 100th guest.
Thank you.
If you guys don't know who this guy is, which I'd be very shocked if you didn't know who he is, because he's very famous. You got, what, 70,000 followers?
Is that famous in LA?
You're verified.
I am verified.
Noah Neiman.
And I didn't pay for it, which is
You didn't. I paid for it.
Well, I mean, I did some some favors, but we won't talk.
We'll
about
get into that. Yeah, Noah Neiman is the founder of Rumble Boxing, which sold. So you definitely cashed out, which we'll talk about. And just one of the most energized people that I know. Honestly, should be the mayor of LA at some point. I feel like you got to run. Like,
Don't get me started on politics right off the bat.
We'll get into politics.
Can you wet me up a little bit before we?
Yeah, no.
get right
Founder
into
Rumble
it?
Boxing. What else would you say in your intro? Like, how would you describe
I
yourself?
don't know. I'm actually like very. I'm an ambivert, so it's hard for me to talk about myself.
Interesting.
What is an ambivert?
Ambivert is
Yeah.
when I'm in public, I'm very extroverted and outgoing, but then sometimes I have. It's the autism, the spectrum trait.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get really like, especially when people ask me about like what I've done.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like when
Really?
somebody asks you your favorite movie. They're like, what's your favorite movie? And you forget every movie you've ever seen. But no,
Yeah.
I honestly like, I'm just a guy that's been through a fuck ton in my life. Like some of the darkest anals of, yeah.
Very interesting choice of words there.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're all friends here.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've just, built a kind of brand with Rumble and kind of my own personal brand to bring health and fitness to light. But then I've been fortunate enough to, have a show on Bravo and to be able to speak with you fine folks. And
The mic, yeah.
oh, sorry. Well, hold on.
Whoa.
It was getting a little limp. Again, I've just been fortunate. I mean, I guess the best way to explain like what I do is to explain who I am, because I've been able to build a career around who I am and what I've been through and kind of that dark road and turning it, tragedy to triumph, so to speak, bars. So I started as an accountant, actually.
No shit.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
So accountancy and ADHD, which you validated that I have for sure.
You definitely fucked up.
Thank you, chef. Thank you, doctor.
It takes one to know one.
No, you fucked up all the numbers though. When you were doing the books, you're like,
I
tweaking on the.
No,
fucking-
actually, to be honest, I was actually really good.
You were?
So because I was such a personality in that world,
Yeah.
that's kind of, no disrespect, but not known for its personality, all the clients loved me. So I was like in Delaware at, Wilmington, Delaware at a hotel counting bed sheets and auditing them, but like with the managers and cutting up and like telling jokes and stuff. And so they always would ask me to come back. So I fell into the trappings of like the corporate world where every time I would go to quit because I was miserable, like literally I would be in the bathroom, like calling my mom, I can't do this. I can't believe people like sit at a desk all day like this. Like I gotta be destined for better things. Like I always had this boundless energy and I just didn't know where to channel it. But they would always like give me a raise. I'd go to quit and they'd be like, hey, here's $5,000 more. And when you're a broke, kid who never, didn't have a ton. I grew up middle class and my parents worked really hard to give me all the things, but never grew up very wealthy. Especially coming out of college, I didn't have a ton of money. And they throw, 5 G's at you, 3 more G's at you. You're like, oh,
it's a lot of money in the moment.
It's a lot of money in the moment. And so what happened is my then boss at the time brought me into his office, his little corner office on 46th Street and 6th Avenue in New York City. And he goes, listen, you're really good at your job, but like sometimes you're just not here. Like sometimes, you really got to focus. Like I would hit like 2-hour gym breaks at New York Sports Club and like lift and work out. And I'd come back in like gym shorts and a cutoff to my accountant job. And like, but I was like, again, clients love me, so they couldn't really fire me. But he pulls me into this office and he has his pictures of his wife and his kids that I would assume doesn't really see that much because he was always in the office. Yeah. And he was like, listen, if you really work hard and you buckle down, in 3 years, like you could have this. And when I tell you the dread that hit, that's what I'm saying. The dread that hit my heart and went into my butthole and back to my heart was like, I don't want this. I quit on the spot.
No shit.
I didn't have any backup. It was an impulsive thing. Like I didn't know why. I was just like, I quit. I didn't want that. I saw the future. It was like, I don't know, flashing in my head. And I didn't have a job, but I had bills. I had just rescued Oz, my dog that just passed, 18 years old.
How old were you during this time?
This was 22.
Okay, yeah.
23.
So people are trying to figure it out during that time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's a screw up at 22, 23.
Yeah.
Like 20s, that's where you're supposed to like test things, screw up, fail, do it again, do it better. And I happened to meet up with a friend at the gym who was like doing like promotional director work in New York City. And this was an era of like the dope clubs, like 10 June, like not to date myself, but this was like 2007, pre-housing crash.
That's crazy.
I'm actually 75 years old, but I work out. I work out a lot and I eat a lot of greens. So I fell into this job running clubs. Yeah. Like for the Albanians.
Were you a promoter or were you?
So I was the promotional director. So we would hire promoters. We would hire DJ. So I actually, funny story, because I've worked with some artists with Rumble. Yeah. And we play a lot of Aoki songs. I hired Aoki in 2006 or 7 for like $1,000 to headline this nightclub called Touch before he was like throwing cakes, selling out, doing $500,000 a show. Like, so we were the OGs, like bringing him in. Yeah, we ran this club called Touch, where actually I learned more about business and probably more things that I apply to my entrepreneurship now, running clubs and working in hospitality and really servicing clients than I did in school as an accountant, reading any, Dale Carnegie book or Warren Buffett speech. Like,
I love how he said that.
Carnegie. I'm from, Dale Carnegie.
I'm reading How to Win Friends and Influence
People. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, right
now.
Saying,
like, all these old white men. First off, thank you for letting another white guy on a podcast. Because that's like, if white male privilege isn't real, they just have to look at the podcast viewership or the podcast attendees. And that's, anyway. So, ADHD, where the fuck was I? Where was I?
Dale Carnegie.
This is going to happen a lot, by the way.
It's fine. No,
we were talking about how you learn more from the hospitality.
Yeah, so just like literally being able to connect to a different group of people every day and know how to placate different personalities and egos and really service a customer is kind of like the foundation of what Jeff Bezos always talks about, which is being obsessed with the customer, being obsessed with the customer experience. So I got to learn that firsthand. So my career is like, it's like Slumdog Millionaire. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Of course.
That's an Indian movie.
I was in the movie.
Yeah, you were
the guy.
Yeah, you were the stand-in for the child star.
That's literally my life
story.
This
was the cancelable shit. I love him. It was a great movie. All right. Anyway, so very Slumdog Millionaire. Like, I have no real background in what I do now, other than I learned it from just living a life.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that what I was saying before the ADHD kicked in is I've been everywhere. I've been depressed. I've been fat. I've been broke. I've been rich. I've been on drugs. I've been off drugs. Like, I almost OD'd a few times. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, so I've experienced everything. And at the end of the day, it's taught me empathy. And I think as an entrepreneur, learning empathy early is one of the most important traits. And it's so underrated because when you're empathetic, you can relate to a customer. You can anticipate their needs. You can lead from a place of providing value as
100%.
Opposed to extracting money, which is, I think, a lot of the focus of startups, especially nowadays. I mean, coming out of the crypto, boom, and all that stuff. It was, all right, how can we rug people? How can we, take advantage of them quickly and earn a buck, as opposed to how can we provide lasting value?
For
so
sure.
that's why you see the Apples, the Amazons, the NVIDIA. I mean, now.
Crazy.
Just companies like that are obsessed with making people's lives better in their own sector. Yeah. Those are the companies that are not just the get rich quick.
But that stick around.
Yeah, that are lasting. But more important for me, at least, than the financial element of it is just providing value to the world. And there's one quote that I talk about. Literally, every podcast that I do is Muhammad Ali when he said, "Service to others is our rent for our room here on earth." And that was one of those things that when I heard that quote, it hit me so damn hard because I was in New York, I was doing the club thing, and I was like having fun, not realizing how much I was learning. But I was just trying to make money to buy a hoodie, to buy like a $1,200 Great China Wall hoodie. You remember those ones with the Swarovski crystals on it and stuff? I saw like some rapper had it, and I was like, I need it.
Yeah.
And you know what? I made a little bit of money, but I lost it all, and I was dead broke again because I was doing things with the lens of, all right, how can I get the stuff that I want? Not how can I provide, you know, a space or provide a service where it amplifies people and it makes them feel better and it makes them get out of their own head for a little bit, and, you know, satiates that internal desire to just be happy and do things that make you feel positive. So that was the fundamental switch. When I heard that line, I was like, damn. And the funny thing is I ended up making so much more money building brands and, you know, building my own brand within, I should probably backtrack, building my own brand within Barry's Bootcamp. So I started after the 2008 when the housing bubble happened, and everybody was broke. It was like nobody was spending money in the clubs. At the same time, I had one of my family members had stage 3 colon cancer, and another one had just suffered a heart attack, people very close to me. So I ended up leaving my job in New York City running these clubs because of the housing crisis and also because of the sicknesses in my family. And I moved back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and I forgot everything that I had learned my whole life because I was so depressed and I was so scared about losing 2 family members that I loved. Got into drugs, stopped working out. Like, working out was always my salvation from a young age because I was always, you know, bouncing off walls, getting kicked out of schools, like have a lot of behavioral problems, stealing cars, like the whole fucking, I was like, like a little kid, like running amok in Pittsburgh.
Are you an only child or do you have siblings?
No, I have an older sister and a younger brother. And my younger brother, actually, I should show a picture. He just had a baby, Riley Alexandra, 3.
Let's go. We love
If you ever
babies.
have a bad day, you just pick up a baby, a newborn baby that has no woes, that has no problems, it's not jaded, and you look into its eyes and you just see it, and you're like, it's like looking into the ocean. It's the most like calming, peaceful thing. But where the hell were we?
Before the babies. So no, okay. So let's go back. So you were at you were doing party promotions. Divij,
Oh, so cancer. Cancer. So So moved back to Pittsburgh. Ended up running with some bad kids. Did a ton of drugs. Like, forgot. Again, all these principles that I built up my whole life that kept me sane and focused. Especially taking care of my physical body. And we'll talk about that more later. But I ended up one day after a Super Bowl party. It was like midnight or 1 a.m, and we were doing cocaine and painkillers, and like, that is the cocktail that kills everyone. Like uppers and downers, And I remember waking up in the hospital, and like I saw like my mom, my dad, my sister, my niece, my nephew, my brother-in-law, like, you know, all the people that I adored, like looking at me in this like such a concerned light. And from that moment, I quit everything, like cold turkey. Like, no, I haven't touched anything since that moment. And I'm fortunate because a lot, like there's a good chance that I'm like not here right now talking to you for your 100th episode. First off, thank you for having me.
Of course, bro. Thank you.
But without, you know, a lot of people fall into that trapping of, you know, drugs and addiction and depression, and it's really hard to get out of it because, at least for me, and I'm not a doctor obviously, but I'll speak from experience, is everything that you're supposed to do to get you out of that dark place goes against your like natural instincts when you're suffering with depression and anxiety and all this stuff. Like, sticking to your routines and even getting out of bed and just doing things and interacting with people, all those things that's gonna help you. Depression tells you don't do that shit. Drug addiction tells you don't do that shit. So that's why, unfortunately, a lot of people can never get out of that cycle. So I've been very, you know, fortunate to be empathetic to, you know, people afflicted with that. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, well, you started drugs, you know, that's your fault. And yeah, of course, there's responsibility that you have to take, but it's not as clear cut as that. So woke up in the hospital, whole family looking at me, and I vowed like to never do anything ever again. So I didn't. But I don't know if you've ever been on drugs and tried to get off drugs, the withdrawals and like the panic attacks, and like my arm would go numb. And
crazy.
Yeah, that stayed for like literally like 8 months to a year.
Did you go to rehab?
No,
you didn't.
I literally was just like, and I'm not giving advice. I'm telling my story. That's where I think a lot of these podcasts go wrong. Is people try to give advice because everyone's life is so different. I'm just telling you what I did.
Yeah.
And it's really smart to learn from your own mistakes, but it's genius to learn from other people's mistakes, especially when they've fucked up like royally like I have and been fortunate enough through the support of my family and friends and community and people, friends that just, help me and pick me up to get out of that dark place. So I definitely didn't do it on my own, but I didn't go to a traditional rehab. What I did do though, which ended up, it was the Slumdog Millionaire thing. I didn't know at the time it was going to be valuable and pay off later. Is there was this place in Lawrenceville, Pittsburgh, that was opening, and I was driving by. I drive a lot when I'm stressed. I'll put on music.
Yeah.
And I'll just
I want to talk about your driving. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay, first off, the Beverly Hills Police Department might be watching this, so let's be very careful. They already pull me over 1,000 times a day. But no, I drive. I would always do it anytime, my parents would fight or anytime I would be stressed out as a kid, hop in the car, drive.
Yeah. So
I was driving, doing my thing, and I was kind of having a little mini panic attack. I was on the cusp of it. And I remember looking to my left, and there was a dude hanging up a sign that said, Warren Stout, Enzo Gracie, Pittsburgh, Jiu-Jitsu. And I had done jiu-jitsu for 4 years in college at Sarah Jiu-Jitsu right down the street. Went to school at Hofstra in Long Island, which we call the Harvard of Hustle. I don't know who we is. I say that. I don't know. There's no we. It's Eugene Rem and I, my business partner, who owns Catch Restaurants. We call it that. And that moment changed. There were a few moments that have really changed the trajectory of my life and led me to be sitting here, 3,600 miles from East Coast, which is my home, talking about this. Yeah. And that was one of those moments because I traded addictions. I went in, they weren't even open yet. They were literally just hanging the sign. And I was like, listen, I used to train with, Sarah. And he was like, oh, I'm a black belt under Enzo Gracie. It's all a Gracie family. Yeah. And he was like, why don't you, come roll with us, come join. And I was like, yes. So I would roll for hours every day, 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I would run to the hospital to check in on my family. I'd have to, rush my other family member to the hospital because she was having heart problems and stuff like that. There was a year of that, but that kept me sane. It kept me off drugs. It gave me a purpose, gave me a camaraderie and a community, which again was one of the foundations of Rumble. And why I'm so adamant about building something like Rumble. So did that, and then my parents, love to death. I was broke. Yeah. It wasn't working. I was trying to find little odds and ends to make money. But my parents kicked me out of Pittsburgh. They were like, wow, we believe in you. You're destined for something bigger. My mom gave me $10,000 and said, good luck. Crazy. Go to New York. Oh, wow. Packed up the car, packed up my dog, drove to New York. I found a Craigslist apartment from this guy called, I'll give him a full name shout, Alex Malishev. He was a model from Russia or somewhere over there. Yeah. We're American. We don't know geography. Yeah, Alex Malishev. it sounds pretty Russian. So he was doing a shoot in South Africa, and he was like, "My apartment's available for 3 months. I'll just pay what the rent is, and you can have the spot." And so I moved into this place on Washington Street in New York City in the West Village, and I had $10,000, which is in New York City, dollars, that ain't a lot.
It's
and that's
2 months of rent.
But it was my clock. It was my ticking clock to be you got to make this happen. Because I'm not one that likes to take handouts or take charity or I don't like taking money from family members or anything like that. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Yeah. So I got jobs bartending and modeling and doing little odds and ends and stuff like that. And I remember I was still like going through withdrawals and depression and some anxiety and literal panic attacks where my arm would go numb. And my friend, this guy Micah Jesse, was he's a celebrity blogger, and he was talking about this new workout craze that just hit New York City. It just opened a week ago, brand new. I think they were still maybe in their soft opening phase, and he goes, yo, come to this class. Like, I know that you're like Mr. Fitness and you know all about this. You can help me talk about Kim Kardashian's favorite workout. And this was 2010, 2011 at the time. And I almost didn't go. So I'm telling you, like, these pivotal moments, like, I don't turn left and I don't see Enzo Gracie. I don't see Warren Stout's jiu-jitsu. I go about my day. Maybe I get back on drugs because I don't have those friends to keep me occupied for 6 days. I say no to Micah and I don't show up to this workout event, which ended up landing me a job at Barry's. So crazy. I was like sitting there and I was kind of like not feeling good. I was like really depressed, and I was like, you know what? I got this. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna go take this workout class, and that's it. I'm gonna do it no matter what, no matter how shitty I feel. I think I was like literally hyperventilating in the bathroom of Barry's before class because I just like felt off. Yeah. So I take the class. The then now owner, was the trainer. He comes up to me, he's like, hey, do you want a job? He's like, I don't know what you do, but you got a great energy, you got a good look, like you were, motivating your friend, you were dapping him up, high fives, like that's the kind of presence we need here. And I was like, yeah, I'm broke as shit. I don't have anything. Like, yes, please. So I went through all the trainings, and they gave me Monday night at 9 p.m. because I'd never trained anybody before, especially in a group setting, especially for a prestigious brand, Barry's, Soul Cycle. Those were like the big two. There's no big three. There's just big two. So I, Monday night, 9 p.m., I'd show up with my little laptop and my playlist that I had spent hours curating because I was so excited, and like 3 people would be there. And then next week I'd show up and there'd be like no people, and I'd go home. And then it was 2 people. Wow. And then it was 5 people. And then it was 3 people again. And then it was 10. And then it was 5. And then it was 20. And then it was 25. And then it was 30. And then it was 60 people with a 60-person wait list for Monday class. So they gave me all the Monday night class. I donned it. This was when like Twilight was big. I was like, this is Vampire Fitness Hour. I was like, this is, corny. Fitness people are the corniest people in the world. I'm the first to admit it.
If it works, it works,
but it's from a good place. Just know that. And we love shit that rhymes.
Yeah, you're trying to relate to the people. You're trying to get people excited. And those are the things that...
I mean, we could be a little... Yeah, I try to be raw with it. But again, never mind. So he gives me all these classes. And I was doing so well because I was, kind of raw and uncut. Like I wasn't trained as a trainer. I just had trained through football. I'd had really great opportunities to train with the best strength and conditioning coaches, the best pro fighters. So I had learned a lot, again, from the streets, like not sitting in a NASM classroom reading a book. Like I did all that stuff, but like the bulk of what I learned was just, again, Slumdog Millionaire, just living my life. Yeah. And the New York City responded to that. And it was such a really cool group of clients that I had like a editor for Vanity Fair. So he started talking about this class that made him feel great. So again, service to others is our rent for our room here on earth. When I showed up to teach those classes, sometimes in the middle of class, my arm would go numb and I would be having a panic attack. But what got me out of that is historically when I would have a panic attack, I would sit there and I'd hold my pulse and I'd be like, I'm sure you've been there. We've all been there before.
Yeah,
like
it happens.
Anxiety, a lot of people suffer it, but nobody talks about it, especially men. So that's why I'm super open about this. Like I would sit there in the middle of class and be like,
trying to catch your breath.
Yeah. With that being said, I didn't have time because I had 30, 40, 50, 60 other people to worry about. I didn't have time to worry about my own bullshit. I didn't have time to worry about all these like dark places that my brain was trying to force me to go to. I had to focus on, all right, Michael, you're doing a great job. Keep going up that hill. I had to worry about changing the track and making sure that I was hitting like things on the beat drop and like creating an experience that, again, made other people feel great, even though I felt shitty as fuck. And the world responded to that. So, I trained this guy, Michael O'Rourke, and he put me in a digital series for GQ. And it was when Condé Nast was first launching their channel, and he just loved the fact that I had this, energy, like you said, the ADHD, boundless energy, and he gave me that opportunity because I, again, poured so much of my heart into these classes because this shit really saved my life. Like I'm dead. Without this profession, without what I do now, without the businesses I built and the brands that I built, I'm not here. 100%. My parents will tell you that. Like I was a fucking ticking time bomb, and if I didn't find a place to channel all this energy, it would have been channeled right like Oppenheimer, like nuclear bomb. I would have like just exploded. So it was all these little things that like help build up my own brand so that I could eventually launch my own thing, which was Rumble. So it was the Bravo TV shows that people had heard about, my class in New York, so they interviewed me to be on a show, so I did that. I had Good Morning America appearances, Today Show, and I'm like, damn, I can do this just because I love physically training myself, and like especially in this like really cool group setting, which is very dynamic, and it's like it's just a community to it. I can like build a business off that. I never thought
that was your light bulb moment, like the light bulb went off.
That was it, but I mean, listen, they say like half the battle is showing up. That's bullshit. Like everything matters. You have to fucking show up, but then you also have to perform. And is that fair? Yeah. Probably not. Is that life? 100%. 100%. So not only did I show up, I showed up, and even though I didn't feel like it, even though I was literally suffering panic attacks in the moment, I still performed to the best of my ability. And people really resonated with that kind of consistency. Like you said before, like I show up like this, like we've hung out a few times now. I'm never fucking different. I show up. You're always like, because it's authentic. Like I show up with a consistent energy. Also because I'm just fortunate to fucking be here, man. Like, I feel like I'm on like borrowed time now because I feel like I should have OD'd and been gone, 15 years ago. So all this stuff, I'm in like bonus territory now. So this is all this is like fun money.
You're just in that like grateful space every day.
And I want empathetic and gratitude. And like, I know it sounds corny, but like, these are principles that if you apply it to not just your personal life, but your entrepreneurial life, like, you'll build something of value for yourself, but you'll do so by building value for other people, which I think is really cool.
For sure. I want to get into like your morning routine, like the things that you do every day to like stay grateful. But before we get into that,
should we talk about Rumble though?
Let's talk about Rumble. How did you start Rumble? Like, what
that was the thing. So
process?
When I was at Barry's, I obviously trained martial arts, and I was getting into boxing again. I'd done boxing kind of like off and on. I'd done some. Ray Longo's the MMA coach, the Muay Thai coach that was at the Sarah Jiu-Jitsu in Long Island. So I did some stand up, but it was mainly jiu-jitsu. But this guy in my building, Brendan Francis, this 260-pound Australian, he used to train with Mark Hunt, a pro Samoan fighter. So he was a big, stocky dude. Yeah. We were at Crunch Gym on Lafayette Street in New York City. And they happened to have a boxing ring and a boxing setup. And I was over there training a little bit, and I was like, I think I was doing like my jujitsu warm-ups, and this guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I'm Brendan, I live in your building, like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just doing some jujitsu stuff." And he goes, "Hey, I've been boxing for a very long time. Why don't I teach you how to box better, and you teach me jujitsu?" So we started doing that. It's literally 5, 6, 7 days a week. We would go over to Crunch Lafayette. We would roll in the ring, and he would teach me how to box. And you learn how to fight better really quickly when you have a 260-pound, Australian, literally like
that's crazy,
throwing haymakers at you. You learn to keep your hands up real quick.
For sure.
So I was posting a lot of videos on Instagram at the time of me like hitting the speed bag and training with him, hitting mitts and like sparring. And my business partner in Rumble, Eugene Rem, who he started this restaurant called Catch.
Great restaurant.
Incredible restaurant, incredibly prestigious, was just purchased by Tillman Fertitta and Landry's group. They're expanding all over, just opened Miami, like crushes the combination of hospitality and great food. It's just like an experience. Like, he is great at creating experiences. He had this iconic nightclub, 10 June, where like you in the early 2000s, 2007, 8 era, where you would go to 10 June and you might have Kanye West performing just because he loved the space. Or like, Rihanna would grab the mic and start singing, like her new tracks. It was crazy. It was like a weird era.
Wow.
But he saw me posting all these videos on Instagram, and he's like, "Yo, I know you're at Barry's. I know I've seen you, like all the media I was doing, all the stuff, like the producers that were in my class that put me on their, in their magazines." He was like, "Dude, you're building a big name for yourself. Would you want to start something?" And I had this composition notebook that I always like doodle ideas on.
Yeah.
And I wrote the principles of what became Rumble already. So I wrote, I want to punch shit. I want to listen to rap music, because Barry's was very EDM and like poppy, and like I was the only one that played a lot of like hip hop and like the things that I grew up listening to. Like Doggy Style was the first tape that I ever like stole from Sam Goody. Great tape. Jesus, tape.
Jesus.
So a tape, kids, is
please tell.
They're like, "What's a tape, Grandpa?" But I wanted to do that. So punch things, listen to rap music, and do dope shit with dope people. That was literally the 3 pillars of Rumble on a composition notebook that became this internationally known, brand. We have 110 locations with another 200 plus opening. I just got back from Australia, opening up Rumble Bondi not too long ago, getting stopped at the Sydney Opera House, like, "Yo, we love Rumble. We took your class in New York." And I'm like, damn,
that's
like service
crazy.
to others are rent for a room here on earth.
Yeah.
So he hit me up and he was like, "Dude, would you want to start something?" And originally I said no, because I was scared. I had just gotten out of the darkest anals of I just want to see him smile again. I just want to see him smile again. So I had just gotten out of this really dark place, and I was scared, to be honest. I was scared. I was scared to go back, and I did what any good, respectable, Jewish boy would do. I ran home and I called my mom. And I was like, "Mom, I'm real nervous. Like, this is a great opportunity. I really love the players involved. Like, Eugene obviously has just a tremendous reputation in the space, and in New York City, he's a legend." And she was like, "I'll never forget this shit. I might get choked up, so I'm gonna try not to actually cry." But she was like, "No matter what you do, I'm gonna be proud of you." And I was like, the moment where I had almost OD'd and my head played back, and like seeing her face and seeing my family's face of like just not even disappointment, but just fear. And then hearing that from her, like, no matter what you do, I'm going to be proud of you. I was like, that filled me with so much confidence and so much bravado. I walked back into Soho House in Meatpacking District in New York City with Eugene, and we had 2 other principals that were going to be like the CEO and kind of the backbone, and Eugene and I were going to be the curators of the whole modality and the whole brand and the culture and the aesthetics of it. And I walked back and I sat down. I go, sign me the fuck up. I got this.
Let's go.
I got you. So we got to work. We just got to work. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to teach people how to box, because boxing is one of those things that I don't care if you're never going to actually fight or you're going to spar or whatever. You should train that tutelage, because 1, it's great for your body, but the mental benefits are insane. I call it knuckle therapy. So the fact that you can just like ball up your fist and know you can handle yourself and get out some aggression and get out, and obviously you're getting a great anaerobic and aerobic workout. You're toning your body. You're working muscles. You're working muscular coordination. Yeah. It's great for everybody. I don't care if you have Parkinson's or if you don't. And I only say Parkinson's because we just did a collaboration with the Michael J. Fox Foundation last month. Parkinson's patients respond really well to boxing because it works the hand-eye coordination. And it's a neurodegenerative disease, so it helps fire those synapses that are lagging. Right. So like the benefit, I wanted to bring the benefits of boxing, but trust me, I'm the first to tell you, walking into like a boxing gym, especially a traditional one or an MMA studio, it's intimidating for anybody. I don't care if you're a 205-pound dude or like 130-pound girl, like it's intimidating. So I wanted to try to be as authentic and respectful to the sport of boxing. Yeah. Because obviously it's such a prestigious history, but also bring it to the masses, polish it up, make it a good time, add a little theatrics to it, play the good music. It's in the low light situation. You got the Rumble branding like all over the place. That's like very like 90s hip hop, Basquiat, Yo MTV Raps kind of style. And we can talk more about how we
the logo,
built the actual brand to try to get people to tap into their own creativity. But we opened January 9th, 1/9. I'm like a Guy Ritchie film. I'm like Memento. I have all the important things.
You got to do it.
My dumbass doesn't forget. 1/9/17. We opened up our first studio to 500 people coming.
And this was in New York?
New York City, 23rd between 6th and 7th, which was coincidentally 2 streets up from Barry's, where I took that first class, that fortuitous first class. Yeah. So 2 streets up, and then all of a sudden, I'm not even exaggerating, I'm like, the world was talking about us. And we opened up 14 now, studios, big box studios in the big cities. Then the pandemic happened, so we had to pivot and do some digital stuff and deal with that, like shutting down and opening up with 30% capacity, and we still had 100% rent that we had to pay.
Crazy.
It was a wild time, but true boxer, like you get hit on the chin, you pivot, you learn, you get your ass back up, and you deal with it.
For sure.
So we dealt with it. We sold to a company, the IP, to a company called Exponential that their sole purpose is to franchise concepts. So they sold over, I want to say at this point it's 350 licenses and 110 or so are opened. Like we just signed Tokyo. Wow. Yeah, we're going to Tokyo.
That's unreal. Yeah, we got to go to Japan for sure.
We going.
It's my favorite place in the world.
Yeah, but that was the thing, is like it all stems back to like how can we use our tastes and our taste palette that we build up through living a very unique life and use that to curate something, an experience, a service, a good that helps other people, because we're all pretty similar at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah. So that's it. Now Rumble has studios all over the world, and I always get messages, I was having a really shitty week and I went to Rumble and I just got to like forget about all that stuff for a minute, and I just want to like say that it really got me out of my own head. And that taps back to like me at Barry's, like holding my pulse, like getting so nervous about the shit that I had going on in my own head, but being forced to live outside of that, in the best sense of the word, like being forced to focus on other people, other more positive kind of elements that were going on in my direct atmosphere. Yeah. And then instead of just focusing on all like the angst that I had in my own chest. So like to see that, it's like a full circle moment. That's dope.
It's an unbelievable story, bro. Like I mean, I've known you for a while, but I've never actually gotten like the full context to it. But I was that person. Like when I started going to Rumble maybe like 3 years ago, I was having panic attacks, and I was like, I don't know what to do with all this energy. Like I was like, my mind was like eating myself. But when I started going to Rumble, I was able to just put it out there. There's all these beautiful women and people around you, and you're able. Well, I want to talk about that too, because you've.
Let's talk about that. Listen, that part of,
fuck my anxiety. You've curated a space.
There's a lot of baddies that come.
No, like you've created a space for single guys to like actually like.
Well, the way you said it,
yeah, okay,
crazy,
it sounds
all right? The way
sorry,
it's not like Raya. It's not like I opened up a Tinder. But no, I think I never wanted to meet people at a bar. I don't drink anymore.
For sure.
No disrespect to people that drink.
Yeah.
I just don't. So like, where was I gonna meet like-minded people that were like, hopefully into the same things that I was into and wanted to take care of their physical body. And so again, we created, Eugene and I created a space, to be honest, that we wanted to pull up at, that we wanted to bring our friends to, that we wanted to frequent. We never tried to be disingenuous or different, to be honest. We never set out to be different. 90% of gyms, I think that's the actual statistic, 90% of gyms fail. It is up there with restaurants and like as one of the worst in the world.
It's a very expensive business. You have a lot of overhead.
Expensive. Yeah. Preferences change. Workouts are fads. There's so many things that can go against you. There's so much competition. It's so saturated. There's a gym on every corner. But we never set out to be like, okay, there's this boxing gym or there's this, or even Barry's. Like, we don't want to be different. We just like, if we were pulling up to a workout with our boys and with some like girls that we were like crushing on or whatever, like, I don't know why I said crushing on. I've never said that before in my life. What the
You just said it now.
Crushing on. But it was really like, what would we want? What would we want as a consumer? Not as a owner, not as an operator, not as an entrepreneur. Like, what would we want to do? And again, I wanted to punch shit. I wanted to listen to rap music, and I wanted to do it with cool people. So how did we attract cool people? We have a very strong brand identity that is crafted in the light of Eugene and I's tastes. Again, authentically what we grew up with, the music, the art. So coming from Pittsburgh, I was fortunate enough to know about, Basquiat and Warhol and, learn about that street art scene in New York City. So when you go into Rumble, because I grew up reading books on it and looking at all the artwork of like Jasper Johns and Basquiat and stuff, you're going to see that reflected in the artwork and in the walls and in the presentation of the brand and in the copy and in the content. And because obviously I grew up, I'm a white Jewish kid from Pittsburgh, I listened to Hit Him Up on the way here to sit on the podcast. I was like, I ain't got no motherfucking friends. I'm sitting there in the car, like on my way to a yuppie ass podcast with you two. I was 3 Hit 'em Ups away, by the way. I'm very close. I'm right down the street. So I listened to it 3 times on loop, like Office Space. Like, but I wanted to, so the music was unique. We had our DJs custom curate tracks to fit the Rumble modality so that, at the minute mark, there'd be that big drop where that's big energy. So you're going crazy, hitting the bag, you're doing mountain climbers, you're doing squat jumps, and like, it's a moment. Like it's created, it's crafted, it's curated. It's not just, it doesn't just happen. And then, everything from just the clean aesthetics to the logo. So I grew up skateboarding. And this is very reminiscent of the Spitfire logo. So when we were working with Jaywalk, the branding firm that we were ideating kind of concepts for Rumble, we saw this kind of really cheeky street art, like, meets kind of like Yo MTV Raps kind of brand. Yeah. And in an era of especially like the Equinox, the minimalist time, we were like, fuck it, this is us. Like, this is loud and outrageous and like, it's like graffiti all over the walls. Like, that's us. So we resonated with that brand because, again, it's our taste. Yeah. It's our natural taste palette. And it's kind of like Rick Rubin always says. Like, Rick Rubin, who is an icon. Genius, but not classically trained, especially as a sound engineer. He doesn't know how to work a deck. He doesn't but he knows his tastes, and he knows how to articulate those tastes, and he knows how to get an artist to tap into what is authentically their own, which is generated from a life that only they can live. So it inherently has to create something unique. It has to create a unique sound. So that's what we did. We never set out to be different. We set out to be ourselves.
Makes sense. I want to get back into the moments, because it sounds like you had a couple moments in your earlier life when you were going through the depression, the anxiety, and the drugs, where you could have just quit, right? You could have just stopped. You could have died.
Oh, and I did a couple times. Like, I mean, I fell off. I never relapsed, thank God.
Yeah.
But so that from that moment, I mean, that image of my family was so ingrained that anytime like my friends hit me up, they're like, "Yo, let's party." I was like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah.
But I did, like, you know, I went down some dark spirals and got in my head for a week or so, and then I remembered, you know, especially physical training, and I don't want to act like, you know, you can't be successful if you don't go to the gym all the time and you don't take care of your physical body. But for me, the more that I took care of my physical body, the better I was able to control my emotional and spiritual body. And I think that that's important. I'm not like, you know, you can't be like, I don't know, who's that guy that wears the short shorts and he teaches sales.
Oh, you hate that guy.
Oh my God. It's not that I hate that guy.
The bald guy.
Yeah, like, it's not that I hate that guy. I just like, especially in this era of like fitness bro entrepreneur, like, you know, it's just everyone's like, yo, if you go to the gym, you're gonna be, you know, successful. Like, I'm never gonna buy a Toyota Corolla from you if you're a fat slob. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. That's not true. Right. But do I think that you can be financially successful without being in shape? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I know a lot of people that are like that. Yeah. But do I think that you're gonna live your best life if you're not in shape? No.
Right.
Because what houses your mind, what houses your spirit? The only piece of real estate that you actually own is your physical body. And for me, when my emotions were out of control, what I couldn't control were my emotions. Like, you can't, especially when you're going through panic and anxiety, it's very hard to will yourself out of it. If anything, that makes it worse because you focus on it more and like you focus on your problems and then you're like, damn, and then you feel like insecure because you're even feeling that way. Like, depression is
it's a
insidious.
Cycle, for sure.
It's insidious. But what I could control is if I did feel that way, I could go roll with my friends in jiu-jitsu. I could go hump. I could hump. I could be out.
Just humping strangers.
I could be at the track at CMU running laps. Like, I could physically. And then when I noticed that I did that, I was like, damn, my panic kind of went away. Yeah. It's like I feel better, or at least I feel more in control of it now than if I sat there in a chair like, all right, I'm gonna get out of this. I got this. All right, let's focus on positive things. It's like the elephant in the room. Like, when you try not to focus on it, you focus on it more. For sure. But what I can do is remove myself from that environment and put myself in an uncomfortable environment that I don't want to be at. Because trust me, you know from experience, when you're going through a depressive state, you don't want to do shit. You don't want to see anybody. Yeah. You don't, and that's what I was saying, the insidious nature of it, because what makes you feel better is getting uncomfortable, which seems to be the foundation of anything successful in life, or at least lasting 100%. Success, is you have to be uncomfortable for a moment. It's not all fucking sunshine and rainbows and, you know, the Rocky quote. Yeah. The world's tough and life is tough and it's oftentimes not fair and there's going to be shit that you can't control. And you're going to do things that are in your control that you screw up, and you just learn to take the L's and keep on moving. Yeah.
Has God played a role in your success and your ability to come out of that dark position?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, to be honest, completely like transparent. I'm not a massive fan of organized religion in general, but I do believe in God, 100%. There is some omnipotent force. Like, this stuff just doesn't happen. And I've seen some incredible miracles that just can't happen. It's not coincidence. It's not. Right. And there's no scientific rationale for it. Right. This is so LA. Like, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Yeah, like, but to be honest, like, I believe in a higher power. Yeah. And I identify as a Jewish man. You know, I was bar mitzvahed, but I don't go to synagogue, and I don't, you know, I don't keep kosher. But I've never personally, maybe because I also have ADHD and oppositional defiant disorder. So like being in an organized like group is hard for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's actually like mentally challenging for me to be in a club or a group. Like, I got kicked out of the Boy Scouts the first day. if that makes sense. Not for anything inappropriate. Yeah. Like I was just like a bad kid. I was just acting up. But yeah, I think tapping into anything that can get you out of your own space is incredibly important. So whether that's God, whether that's, again, your friend group, but having that outlet where you understand that the universe is so vast and complex that there's no conspiracy against you, you know, it just is. The universe just exists and it just goes. I mean, I believe as God is kind of like the clockmaker, where he winds up the clock and just lets it happen. And we have to make choices. And I think that those choices hopefully are swayed by believing in a higher connectivity to our fellow man, our fellow, you know, God, whoever's watching us.
Right.
So I think in that realm, yes, 100%. And I've definitely like, prayed before. But not as a Jewish man, just as a man.
Right.
You know, so I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of where I'm at.
That makes sense. I'm fascinated by the concept of like the conscious versus the ego mind, right? Like I think there's a stat like 90% of humans, it might even be more, are living in a state of ego mind. So they're letting their mind actually control their, you know, their movements, what they think, like what they're doing every step of the day.
Which is scary.
Which is really
it's
scary.
Like a parasite because you don't even realize you're doing it.
Right. So how did you ever deal with that in terms of having the ego mind? And then
100%.
how did you achieve your more conscious state? Like, did you go through a spiritual enlightenment?
I was the shittiest person in the world. I like only cared about myself and my own shit. That's why I was saying that profound quote like really changed the trajectory of my life. I would be a miserable person. I probably wouldn't be alive, but if I was, I'd probably have some success, at least financially, because I was always a hustler.
Yeah.
But I would be miserable. So yeah, I mean, it's like anything else. Like to get out of your own ego and to get out of that ego state of mind, it's a discipline train like any other thing of worth. Anything.
Yeah.
It takes consistent effort in the face of tremendous adversity at times and tremendous pushback from your own self, to be honest. Because like your body wants to stay in its own head. It's like it wants homeostasis. It wants to be that ego-driven person that only worries about itself and only worries about, you know, where am I going to sleep? Who am I going to sleep with? How am I going to pay for my food? How am I going to eat? And like, you know, we're in LA, so how am I going to, you know, get a Urus or something? Whatever is important to people out here. But that's the thing is like, it takes consistent conscious effort caring about other people to get out of that, like, to pull yourself out of that state. And then it takes consistent practice to stay out of that. Because like I said, your body naturally defaults to an ego state. So that's why Rumble, again, it's been a financial success and it's, you know, gone all over the world. But like for me personally, selfishly, every day I wake up, like you've seen me in the studio. Yeah. Like I'm checking in on everybody. I'm like out of my own shit. Like, you know, my dog passed away of 18 years and I was in the studio the next day. Whereas like I would have been crying in like my, you know, bed, just like thinking about that nonstop. And obviously I was shaken up, but I got to go to the studio and care about other people and remove like, okay, my dog didn't die because of me, because the world hates me. And like this is part of life. And this is obviously the final cost of a tremendous love. Yeah. So, but I got to, again, help myself by focusing on other people. And I think that's where people like miss the mark, and it's such low hanging fruit to try to do that. Yeah.
And that's beautiful though, because like that same day that your dog passed away, and I'm sorry for your loss, obviously, like someone else in that studio could have also.
It's my boy.
It's a beautiful dog.
It's my boy. Yeah. That's Oz right there.
Shout out Oz.
Yeah, shout out Oz. And Dez at Bang Bang in New York for doing some crazy photorealistic tattoos of Oz. This was a great day.
I love that. But like someone else's dog could have also died that day, and then maybe your support in the studio and you engaging with them, maybe you took them out of a state of sadness, right? So you have to realize that other people are also going through similar, potentially worse 100%. Things.
10,000%. And that taps back into what I told you was the most important thing is not just an entrepreneur, but as a human, which is empathy. Yeah. You know, I don't judge anybody. Yeah. I don't care what you do. Like I never judge short of like pedophiles or like molested, like that, I'll judge you. And like, you know.
For sure. And you can catch the fade.
Yeah, definitely catch these hands. But in terms of just like people's lifestyle choices or life choices, like who am I to pass judgment on anybody else and cast stones at people?
You know, I got to tell you a story. So a lot of your story resonated with me because I went through drugs, and a lot of Div was actually the one that was there to pull me out of it. And I remember this one time, I got to tell you this story.
Okay, buddy. Yeah.
But like I had just gotten done wrecking my car twice, fucking strung out, you know, just trying to be out there and just get out of it, get clean. And he was the one who's like, hey, you want to take this boxing class with me at Rumble? And he takes me there. At this time, I'm like in shambles, got no money, nothing. No way. He pays for my Rumble class and buys a couple of passes for me. And it's like kind of just hitting home when I hear the founder of Rumble was going through something very similar to what I was going through. And now, you know, I have the support of him, and now obviously I'm doing better now. But this was, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. So it was like a full circle moment and I'm actually like honored that I get to tell you this.
I'm honored to hear it, dude.
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you.
Awesome.
But that's the thing is like, we're all on the spinning fucking rock together. And yet we try to divide ourselves so much when like, if we just sat back for 2 seconds and again, fought to remove ourselves from our own egos, we'd realize that a lot of us have the same struggles. Not just similar struggles, but the same fucking struggles. And yet we're so combative with one another. I don't get it. It like boggles my mind. It boggles my mind. And I don't know why I said that.
I feel like you're about to, this is not Sway in the morning, but we'll drop the beat. Drop the fucking beat.
Drop the beat. Let me do the freestyle. Let me do 5 fingers of
death.
death. Shout out to Sway, though. I mean,
you
never thought I was cool until you just found out I did Sway's Universe, which honestly, objectively, is probably the coolest thing I've ever done. To be in the same chair as like Kanye West being like, you don't have all the answers, Sway. You ain't got the answers, Sway. And to be sitting there and like to get to tell my story, and hopefully, again, it resonates with somebody. Like, I do tell my story because it's very therapeutic for me. So again, I'm not trying to be pious and like selfless. It really is helpful for me to like consistently talk about the darkness because it reminds me, it keeps that chip on my shoulder. It keeps me focused. It keeps me out of trouble. But then it also, in the rare moment, which seems to not be so rare anymore, when that story resonates with somebody. Like, dude, he went to Rumble and it helped him get out of that dark place. That's why I created Rumble, because fitness and training, especially like what we do at Rumble, had always been there for me. It didn't judge me. You know, it had nothing but love. And kind of like, that's where I feel like we need to be. We need to be in a place of understanding. And now more so than ever, I feel like we're going in the wrong direction. You know, we have this election cycle coming up, and I'm not like, I understand politics. I'm not going to get political, and I can tell you who to vote for. But like the fact that politics and sometimes religion are used as means of division, that's what doesn't sit well with me. That's what. Right. Because again, like we're all one under the sun. So like why are we actively trying to, you know, go against each other?
100%.
It's wild to me.
100%.
Seriously, like that's
that's awesome.
That's such a great
good story, right? And I had no idea that it was so parallel to your story, which was crazy, you know.
But that's the thing, man. Like this is like, again, I said it was a rare instance. Like I've heard this a few times now. It's not that rare. Like again,
it's really not.
We're all very, very similar.
Very similar.
Very similar.
I want to talk because I think a lot of people that are going to listen to this are going to be like, maybe in a rut. They might be on drugs. They might be going through a dark time. Yeah. What are some like tactical things that you do every day, like morning routine, your diet? Like what are some of those things that you do on a daily basis that keep you on the right path?
You remember what we said? To be successful nowadays, especially in this like podcast, Instagram, bro.
You got to do drugs.
You got to do drugs. You got to really do. You got to do a ton of drugs. But people forget about the second part of it, which is the most important part.
It's a stop.
You got to stop doing drugs.
You got to quit.
No, I'm kidding, kids. Don't do it. And that taps back into what I said about learning from your own mistakes is smart, but learning from others' mistakes is genius. Like learn from our mistakes here. Don't do that. But understand that
I'm gonna clip the part where you said to use.
Yeah, I know you're gonna chop it up and be like, kids do drugs, and Nike's gonna call me. They're gonna be like, don't do drugs. But what almost ODing did, and why I'm grateful for it, and I would never change anything, because I'm not sitting here with you right now, is it taught me gratitude and empathy. Which again are buzzwords thrown around in every fucking podcast, and it's all like a lot of times it's disingenuous, to be honest, but I know firsthand the power of empathy and gratitude, because I almost died, I was almost gone, I like almost threw my life away, and I would have never been able to, you know, start something like Rumble to help you out of your rut. And so like knowing that is empowering. Like,
for sure.
I'm here, like I've made it for a reason. Like that fuels every single interaction, every podcast I do, every time I shake someone's hand at Rumble, every, you know, phone call I'm on. And like that gratitude, and that coupled with that empathy, bounded by that empathy, is really, I think, what makes me successful. Financially and emotionally.
They say that, and I've said this on the podcast before, but they say that the same part of the brain that causes anxiety is the same part of the brain that gives you gratitude. So you can't feel gratitude and anxiety at the same time. So my question is, what are things that you do every day to like practice gratitude? Like, are you journaling? Are you meditating? Are you speaking to yourself.
Do you think that I can sit and meditate? Knowing
no
me,
chance.
I've been fidgeting. I got like restless leg syndrome over here. I'm about to be on one of those infomercials for it. And also, these pants are much tighter than I thought they were, and I'm sweating now,
Nice
and they're like
pants.
a weird material. So sorry if I got like, not being a lady right now. No, to be honest, I try to keep it super simple and something that I can be consistent with.
Yeah.
So boxing's my therapy. And I know that sounds like weird, but like therapy and meditation comes in many forms.
Yeah.
And for me, driving was my meditation. I told you, hop in the car and put on, 36 Chambers of Death, like, Wu-Tang Clan, listen to the whole album.
Yeah.
Like, Green Day Dookie, I like them too. So I would like,
fire.
I just don't want people to think that I only listen to hip hop. They're like, this guy's appropriate. I'm not. I just have respect for it. And I was on Sway, so you can't tell me shit. So driving is still one that I do to this day, and you don't give me shit about my driving.
No, you drive really fast, but I actually feel very comfortable when I'm in the car with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Well,
You're a good driver.
I mean, I've driven motorcycles in New York City a very long time. So like I'm aggressive, but I'm also very aware and cautious because I'm not trying to kill myself on a motorcycle.
Right.
My mom, so the funny thing is when I was growing up, my parents are incredible parents, always loving, always, supportive. But they asked me to do two things. They've never given me like a lot of rules. They were like, don't get any tattoos and don't drive motorcycles.
Damn. Broke both of those.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mom. I fucked up. I fucked up. But again, it's all right. It's all right. She's proud of like she shows my like Rumble articles and stuff in the newspaper. She's like, "This is my son," and now she shows off all my tattoos and stuff.
That's amazing.
But no, I try to keep things that are consistent because listen, some people they're like, "I'm gonna be motivated one day." They wake up and they're like, "I'm gonna be motivated. I'm gonna run every day at 5 a.m. now," and you might do that. Motivation might kick in for like a week. But you haven't built up that discipline yet. So when that week ends, you're like, man, I've done it for a week. I'm going to take tomorrow off.
Yeah.
And then you take the next day off. And then you just forget about it.
Discipline over motivation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's always discipline over motivation. I think motivation is entirely overrated because there are often times when I do shit that I don't want to do, and I'm not motivated to do that shit at all. But I do it. And I do it as well as if I was motivated because I have, again, discipline. Yeah. Being great, as Tyson said, it's about doing the things you hate to do, but doing them like you love it.
Yeah.
Imagine if I showed up to that first class and I was depressed and anxious and I was just like in my own head and I was just like, fuck this, I don't want to be here. Even though I didn't want to be here. Then, Joey doesn't come up to me after, hey, do you want a job here? If I don't get a job at Barry's, I don't, build up my own brand and be able to launch Rumble. So like, it's these moments where, again, not just showing up, but
performing to the best of your ability.
And what keeps me able to perform is, to be honest, like when I'm stressed, I do the things that I know. I box, I train jiu-jitsu, I drive, but also my dogs. I have 2 more dogs, Tyson and Zoe. I still got to get them tatted on my arms.
Cute-ass dogs. We love
they're
them.
gorgeous. We can flash a picture of them because they're like, dude,
the
they
best.
shot for Kith.
That's crazy.
They shot for Petco. They're like little LA dogs now. Although they did shoot those things in New York. But it ties back to like my underlying philosophy, which is when you're going through some shit, sometimes you just got to get out of your own head. So when I'm going through some shit, I grab my dogs, I take them for a walk, I go get them some toys, I go cook them like, some steak and potatoes and mix it in with their kibble and stuff. And like, I do anything I can. It's like, it's dangerous up in here to this day.
Yeah.
To this day. Deontay, wow. But it's dangerous up here. If I'm alone with my own thoughts too long, even now, like, I'm by all, rights, like successful and happy and healthy, and I've done it at least from like the
societal
standards. Yeah. But if I'm by myself too long, it gets really bad up there.
Yeah.
And so I do as much as I can to get myself out of that.
Disidentifying with your mind.
Because
you're not your mind. Right.
Out of the ego.
Exactly.
Which oftentimes, and I talk about this with my father all the time, humans go against their own best interest more often than not, which is really insane to me. Because, if you look at a wild animal, you look at a lion, generally, it's not going to do anything to put itself, whether, it's physical normally, in any danger.
Yeah.
Humans are the opposite because, we're conscious creatures. But for some reason, we use that consciousness and we don't learn how to really tap into it. So we actually end up doing things that go against the embetterment and the progression of our own lives. So I try to, again, when I start going up here, I'm like, but I bust a Yui, and I'm like, I need to get the fuck out. So, you know, I'll hit you up. We'll go to a comedy show. We'll go work out. We'll go hit Runyon. We'll go for a hike. That's why, like, I try to do things physically. And again, it's not just like, you can't just have the tight pants and be successful. Like, going to the gym is not going to make you successful. You got to, that's one element of it.
There's other things.
There's other things. Obviously, you got to be educated. Obviously, you got to hone a skill and a talent that you can give to the world consistently so that they pay you for that value or they pay attention to you because of that value and you learn how to monetize it. There's like a whole thing. And the funny thing about podcasts is like, we try to be these like gunslingers for the clips and the content, but we're actually talking about some really like existential, like deep things. So obviously you didn't prepare any questions for me. Like I didn't look at what
I had
say.
one.
Well, you that will get us canceled. So now they're going to be intrigued. I'm like, what was that question?
We'll put it in the polls under the podcast.
Yeah, what do you think that question was? But that's the thing is like, we try to get as like deep as we can with these little quick like gunslinging clips, but you know, so we come up with like these insane things, like again tapping back to the dude with the short shorts and the shaved head, and he's like, yo, how many Hellcats did you sell this month? And the guy's like, 7. And he's like, all right, if I held a gun to your mama's head, he doesn't talk like that, I don't know why I'm doing that. I went to my Mr. T voice for some reason. He's like, if I held a gun to your mom's head and I told you you had to sell 100 fucking Hellcats, would you do it? And the guy's like,
no shit.
Yeah, like, yeah, I guess. Like, what's he going to say? No, like, kill my mom? And he's like, then why is it going to take someone holding a gun to your head to do that? And I'm like, what fucking, we're like, we've lost the plot. Like, where are we as a society that this is what gets like 100,000 views? So, again, I'm trying to answer your questions. And like, but that's why I say, like, I don't have any advice for anybody. I don't. Like, who am I to fucking give advice to people? But what I do have is a really, like, complex history and story that if it can resonate with somebody, then I've done my job. But who am I to fucking sit here and preach like, this is what you have to do, these are the steps to be successful? Nah, there's so many different circumstances and kind of there's other input that goes into is that going to work? Like, I could hand you my life plan, and I've actually said this before, I can hand you my business plan for Rumble. The same thing that I did, step-by-step playbook, a step-by-step booklet for you to get, all right? And it'll come out completely different because you have a whole different upbringing, you have a different mindset, you have different sphere of influence, different connections. So again, when I come on here, it ain't to fucking preach and tell you, you got to do this and buy my ebook and fucking, sign up for my course. It's like, nah, dude, I'm just some dude who's been through some shit who is doing okay now. And I've really, through, again, the help of friends and family and a community that I worked really hard to build, been able to get out of that dark shit.
How important is sleep for you? Are you sleeping a lot?
God. Yeah, I mean, there are times when I get 3 hours, 4 hours of sleep. Like, for some reason, I have this weird thing. If I set an alarm for 7 a.m., or no, if I set an alarm before 8 a.m., 8, 7, something like that, I can't go to sleep. If I don't have that alarm, I'll get up at 7 or 8, but I'll be fine. But if I know, so this happened, it's a phobia that happened. I was doing the Elvis Duran show, which is, do you know who Elvis Duran is? So Z100 in the Morning Zoo. I'm saying
I know who Elvis is.
No, not okay. That was Michael Jackson. I don't know why I did this thing. I don't think Elvis ever did that. That was him. So Elvis Duran in the Morning Zoo is like a New York kind of radio show, really popular morning show. But they tape at like 5 in the morning or something. And it was one of the first big national kind of media things I was doing, and I was so excited. I had my alarm set for 4 in the morning that like I went to bed at like 8 o'clock. And I was sitting in bed, and like at 8:15 my eyes open. I'm like, fuck. And then 9 o'clock. And then you start playing that game where you're like, all right, if I go to bed now, I'm going to get 5 hours of sleep. And then you look at the clock and you're like, all right, if I go to bed now, I'm going to get 4 hours of sleep. And then like, all right, if I go to bed now, I'm going to get 45 minutes of sleep. And then I just never slept. So from that moment, I kicked off a phobia. This was 12 years ago. From a phobia that if I set my alarm too early, I cannot sleep. So sometimes that happens. I literally get 4 hours of sleep, but guess what? I still fucking show up. I still perform.
There we go.
But it is important. I never was one of those like fitness guys that was like, you know, you gotta want to be more successful than you want to breathe. And like, you sleep when you're dead and no days off. I'm like,
nah.
One, that's not sustainable. Yeah. There are times where you have to put in like weeks of effort and it's uncomfortable and you haven't slept a lot and you haven't eaten well. And again, if like if building a business or something like that, or building a skill, a world-class skill, like sometimes you just have to make those sacrifices. But as much as I can, I like to sleep. I like to eat properly. I like to make sure that I have my time with my friends. And I've been fortunate enough, like what I've built as a career, and I understand the luxury and the privilege that I have, not just the white male privilege, is the fact that I'm privileged, like showing up at Rumble, I get to hang out with people like you. And I get to kind of build in my personal time while also building a business. So I understand that that's completely unique. Yeah. That's also why I don't sit on a pulpit and I'm like, well, you know, you just got to work all the time. And like, no, because I've been able to get my social dollar in with my actual dollar.
Right.
So super fortunate. But yeah, you have to do all those things. But it all stems back to what is the one piece of real estate we actually own? Our body.
Yeah.
What can we control? We can't control how others treat us oftentimes. We can't control how our work treats us, but what we can control is what we physically do to our body. Now, I totally get these socioeconomic impediments of eating properly and training. I get that. That's a whole different issue. And again, that's why it's hard to give like superficial answers to deep questions, which I'm trying not to do. But as much as we can within our constraints, we got to just take care of ourselves. We got to take care of our physical bodies, because when the shit hits the fan, if I'm physically in shape, I know that I can still perform and do what I need to do and put myself in the best emotional and mental position to get out of that darkness. And again, I'm just speaking from experience.
Amen. How do you view money?
What?
How do you view money? Because look, like I'll tell you my story, right? Like when I started becoming an entrepreneur, it was all just so I could make money, I could buy things, cash flow. You know, you want the freedom.
That's most people.
Right. So like, is money a tool for you? Like,
I think you touched it.
Yeah.
Money's freedom.
Yeah.
Because I remember like one of the things, and we talk about the kind of the chips on our shoulders that I'm fortunate for. One of those chips was I lived in Alphabet City. I found a roommate on Craigslist.
I found him on Craigslist.
Did you really?
Well, I was a photographer at the time, and
Which section of Craigslist?
It was the men seeking.
Yeah, was it the M4M?
Creative gigs.
No, it was Backpage. It was Backpage. Sorry, it wasn't Craigslist.
It was the dark Craigslist. It was the dark web. Yeah, so you guys saw each other on Craigslist?
That's cute. Photographer, yeah. He's a photographer.
That's cute. So I went on Craigslist and found an apartment because I didn't have a lot of money. And I would go to this place called Key Foods, which was like the supermarket in Alphabet City on I think it was 5th Street and Avenue A in New York City. And I would go in there, and I think at that moment I had just started out as a trainer at Barry's. Like I had that one class, and sometimes I'd make like $40 a week. Sometimes I'd make $20 a week, like when nobody would show up. Like I was not rolling by any means. And so I would play, debit card roulette. And I would pull up to the cashier, not knowing like what the fuck was going to work out. And they'd ring it up, and I'd like swipe, and insufficient funds. And you're like,
shit.
Fuck. Yeah. And then so you put back like the chicken, and then you swipe again, insufficient funds. You're like, fuck. So I put back like the Friendly's cottage cheese. And, you're sitting there like, fuck, like how much do I got to put back? And I remember that just being like such a devastating feeling. And I never wanted to have to go through that again. So I think, money's the necessary evil. But what I will say is I know a lot of super successful people, at least financially, that are fucking miserable. They're empty. They're corrupt. And it's because, like you said, they try to earn first off, they manipulate to get their money a lot. Because there's a fine line between like marketing a business and then manipulating to get business. So I've always been very cognizant of that. I've never wanted to earn at the expense of somebody else. So I think that for me, obviously money's freedom. Like, you need money to do things. You need money. I don't care, money's not the root of all evil. Try to make an impact on your community without money,
True.
Whether it's, creating, a dog rescue, a charity, whether it's creating, something for the veterans, anything needs money. So you got to have it. So you might as well learn to play the game.
Yeah.
But what I'll say is, you got to be super careful, because money is also extremely flammable. It's like nitroglycerin. I've seen good people go real wrong because money's entered the equation. So it's one of those things that everybody's got to learn to navigate that world. But listen, let me tell you, I've been broke, and it's much better to be able to pull up to Key Foods now and not have to be scared. And the fun things, like, that shit is all fun, the Porsches and like the watches and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's cool. I like that. There's nothing wrong with like liking things and working hard for things. But like anything else, I think it's about, it's kind of about your perspective. And for me, like, if you remove all these things, especially now, I definitely went through an era where, you had to know that I was, I was super insecure about money for a long time because I was broke. So now it's like, I went through an era where, like, you got to know that I can afford the things. I got to have the freshest, like, clothes, and I got to have Balenciaga and stuff. And now, like, you give me some Kirkland brand sweats and a t-shirt, I'm chilling. I'm chilling. Because, again, I worked hard to remove ego from that situation. Yeah. So money and ego, real dangerous.
For sure.
But money rooted in empathy and gratitude, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Well said. Dude, I mean, this might have been our best podcast.
No, get the fuck out of here.
I swear to God, this was like so, I almost cried. I've never almost cried.
I literally was getting teary-eyed. Yeah. I have cried. Listen, I have cried on national TV before. I just, like, I don't know. Today I had to hold it back. Yeah. I had to hold it back. Because I would have started weeping, especially after hearing your story, bro. Like, that shit, like, to be honest, thank you. Because it's hard, man. It's hard. Personally, like, I've just been through a lot. And, like, I get super tired sometimes thinking about, like, how far I've climbed and, like, still having to perform at really high levels. And hearing stories like that, like, is fuel in the fucking fire that keeps, like, me going. So thank you for, like, being vulnerable and sharing.
Sure,
I think that's the thing.
This is a full circle, man. It was like
that's so crazy. That's so crazy.
Played a role in that moment too.
Such a human moment. Yeah, such a human moment.
Yeah, it's cool.
But that's the thing is, like, so imagine if you didn't reach out to Divij and, like, you tried to, like, suffer those things through yourself, and you were like, I'm tough, I can do it. And I don't care how tough you are. Like, listen, the Beatles, we get by with a little help from our friends. Like, we need to learn to be vulnerable and lean into it. So if you take, like, one thing from this, it's like, create that environment around you where you can be vulnerable, and where they're not going to exploit your vulnerabilities or tease you for them, but they're going to help you, get through those moments. Because look at what just literally just happened here.
Yeah. I think especially as men, like, we think we got to be so aggressive and tough all the time, but Is
it still Men's Mental Health Month, or was that May?
It's Pride Month.
Pride Month now.
Is it Pride Month? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Walking a close
line.
Yeah,
seriously, I didn't want to get canceled. No.
No, you guys had Pride.
Happy Pride. We're doing the Pride things at Rumble. We have Pride
classes
classes donating to the Trevor Project, which is a really great foundation. Talk about money being necessary to help people. So we raise money for the Trevor Foundation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but Men's Mental Health Month, I guess, last month. Yeah. And it's true, man. There's, like, mental health even today is still stigmatized. So I'll talk about all my fuck ups. I'll talk about all the, times when I've had, like, literal breakdowns and been able to, again, just tell people what got me through it, because hopefully it's not going to help everybody, but if it helps one singular person, then service to others is our rent for our room here on earth. And Muhammad Ali will be looking down being like, all right, this little white kid from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, like, he's doing something, impactful. So,
well, you're doing something a lot bigger than just something, bro. Like, you've definitely impacted me, Christian, and I think the entire community.
I didn't know about it, but
Thank you.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for starting Rumble Boxing and everything else you've done. Make sure you guys go follow Noah. Follow Christian. Make sure you guys stay tuned for the 101th episode.
101th. Okay, so you can't just lift weights. You got to read some books occasionally too, kids, or you're gonna end up.
Anyway.
That's why I told you can't just work out, bro.
No, I gotta.
No, he's a very. I will vouch for him. He's very articulate. He's very smart. You are a very, very strong entrepreneur as well, and I've learned some things from you.
I appreciate it. I love you. And make sure you guys subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, let us know what you thought, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.